Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. The Rock the Ripple podcast with Narita McInnes.
Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rock the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Narita McInnes. It is so awesome to be here with you as always. And today is another very exciting day because I have a very special guest on the show. He is the host of Conversations with Adrian. He is a personal growth coach, a dad, an entrepreneur, an all-round awesome person. He is Adrian D'Amico. Oh, I stuffed it. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Close.
After all of that.
That's good enough.
No, let's get it right.
Really
It's Adrian D'Amico.
D'Amico, that's it.
That's it. I see I was overthinking it, you know?
Nailed it. Yeah, that's right.
I wanted to do it the Italian way, you know?
D'Amico.
D'Amico. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Adriano D'Amico.
Adriano D'Amico. Yeah, beautiful. Love it.
Yeah.
So now that we've got that out of the way, welcome to the show. How's your day going so far?
Yeah, amazing day. I mean, we're shooting this in the morning, so my mornings are really easy, and I make it that way every single day, is to get down to nature. I live by the beach, so and I've got a beautiful little dog, and well, she's not so little anymore.
No.
Little Sky. So we get out every morning, go for a walk, and then she watches me have coffee and read my book at the cafe for the next half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, and then I get to the rush of the day. So yeah, it's been great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So for people who may not have come across you before, I know I've done a little bit of an intro, but can you give them a bit more of an idea of who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I think in a nutshell, like for the most part, for the people that haven't really been exposed to some of my most recent work, like for ages now, for 20 odd years, I've been in business. So I've been a business guy, and I read all the books, you know, the Robert Kiyosaki books, the Tony Robbins books, all that kind of stuff in my late teens. Always had a passion for being a business owner. Grew up with a family of business owners. So my life has always been trying to make a way through self-employment and creating business ideas and things like that. So that's my life up until for the last 20 years or so, 21, 22 years. So that's pretty much like from a working perspective. And then in between that, like it's 3 kids, getting married, all those sorts of things that come along, with life. Mm-hmm. But in the last couple of years though, some of the things that have really happened that have kind of projected I guess my name and the meaning and the power behind some of the things that I'm doing is that I took on a coaching role after my last business, and I started coaching people in the business space. I started doing some social media marketing and all those sorts of things. And I thought that podcasting would be a really good idea to kind of put a show together. So I did. It was mainly video based. It wasn't so much like audio only. And I turned my mind to interviewing experts around the world that were really keen on business and things like that. But then COVID happened. And in between COVID, I started a new business, which was an idea that I had for like 10 years, which was to open up an indoor skate park. So I got 3 kids. They're all boys. And in my youth, I used to skate. And so I wasn't any good, but I used to love the idea of heading out and going for a skate. We never had indoor parks and things like that. So I had that idea floating around for ages. And my wife at the time saw a news article down your way in Adelaide of a guy that opened up a skate park. She said, someone else is doing your idea. And I'm always like, the universe will send you an idea, and if you don't do it, they'll just give it to someone else.
Yeah.
And so I thought, fuck, I can't let this bloke take my idea. He did exactly what I thought would like my hometown of Wollongong would need. And so I got a buddy of mine. We went down to Adelaide, we went to Melbourne, we went to Brisbane, we went to, the parts of Queensland, Sydney, Canberra, and we visited all the parks, did our due diligence, and I opened up 360 skate park I started in the end of 2019, opened up January 10, 2020. And then by February 28, March 28, I think it was, we were closed down for COVID. And so my life got turned upside down. And so long story short, I started to turn my attention towards focusing on I guess, the wrongdoings and all of the things that I was disagreeing with in terms of this COVID narrative and all that kind of stuff. So I had a voice, I had a platform. At that time, I think I had about 8,000 or 9,000 fans on Facebook and 1,000 followers on Instagram, that sort of stuff. So it wasn't massive, but it was a following and an identity nonetheless. So I turned all of my attention to interviewing experts again. And so I interviewed Roger Hodgkinson. I interviewed Dr. Christiane Northrup, Dr. Peter McCullough. Like, I got all of these people to come on the podcast and talk about all this stuff that was going on. And they had ideas that were similar to mine. But boy, did it fucking change my life, because everyone started to come down on the things that I was saying like, you're a granny killer and just all that usual COVID stuff that come through. And it ostracized myself from family, from friends, from the business community, which I established, quite well over the last 20 years. And it separated me. But this has happened before though, Narita. So like, when I was younger, I had an issue at school where I got bullied heaps in high school. And it's one of those things where I was like a really popular kid, but when I got bullied, I could count all of my friends on one hand. And so this has happened before. I almost had the training for everyone doing the mass exodus and isolating me and pointing the finger and all that kind of stuff. But I've never felt so in tune with purpose and with meaning and with the desire to use my voice, which is what I think is my number one asset, to carry through a message to the people that were either powerless, voiceless, or didn't have the courage to speak out. And so through all of that, I had all of that disparity and the ostracization of just me in the public and all those sorts of things. It definitely affected my marriage. It wasn't the reason why we separated, but it was the part of the catalyst to it, because there was a division. And when you stay at home, the holes in your armor start to sort of come out, and you start to realize that things are different in the world, and you start to I don't know, count your cards again and think like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what's going on with my life? What am I here for? Where am I really supposed to be? And at that time, the harshest realization was like, I wasn't in the right partnership. I wasn't in the right business. Even though these were great ideas, and even though, that person was the love of my life at some point, it just wasn't the case anymore. So I had to come to this sort of like moment of truth. But on the flip side of that, I had this huge following, and my videos started to go viral. I was one of the ones that, like many people, were getting censored. But I went from like, I don't know, 8,000-9,000 fans to like 30,000. And it keeps growing. It just grows daily, because a lot of the messaging was kind of like polarizing at the time. And so I kind of found my feet. So to come full circle, I now coach more on the health space. So the mental health, personal growth, anything to do with values, beliefs, anything to do with trapped emotions, but also on a holistic approach. So I help people kind of get more of a sense of direction and purpose and meaning as to what they are meant to be doing, aligning their values with their belief systems and living a congruent life based on that. And that's to do with health, to do with vitality, to do with vigor, to do with your sex life, just like your desire and passion, how you attack the world. All of that kind of stuff is super passionate. Those are the things that I'm passionate about. And so I just coach on all of that now. I still got the business side of things going. So in the meantime, like, I've lost everything. So Narita, like, I've lost my business, my marriage, like, I'm like shitloads of debt. Like, everyone's chasing me for coin. Like, it's one of those sort of like bankruptcy type of situations. But again, never felt more in tune, in alignment with the things that I'm meant to be doing, and never felt more steadfast in the approach of how I should be going. Even at 45, like, starting all over again is fucking daunting. But I feel like I've now got this like opportunity that I've never had before. And I've got this passion, desire, and hunger that I've cultivated over the last couple of years. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
That's so cool. It's like, there's so much in that. There's so much in that. And even though you've had the shittiest time, it's the best time. Like, there's always beauty in the crappy time. Do you find that?
100%. The biggest growth curve that I've had in my entire life has been this last couple of years. And so, like, I know you and I both talked to Dale Holmes, and we talk about the quickening a lot when I interview him as well. So I think everything's kind of speeding up at such a rapid rate. The veil has been lifted. And if you're open to learning and going down certain paths and rabbit holes and things like that, you really find out that the world is not the same. And so the journey of then uncovering those things and then discovering things about yourself is, I think in the last couple of years, for me personally, it's been the biggest catalyst to growth. And I've had many learning curves. Like, life always deals me an 11 out of 10 lesson. That's how I roll. Like, I don't learn little lessons once and whatever. It slaps me 10 fucking times. And then it just goes, you got to learn this lesson. And then it just gives me the biggest deal. And so, personal growth, relationships. When I got into things that were haunting me from childhood, past childhood trauma, the relationship side of things, the relationship to self, relationship to others on an intimacy level, intimacy with yourself, that was my biggest growth curve. And so you start to discover all of these little hidden traps, these hidden doors, these hidden things that were lurching around the entire time, sabotaging your success and pointing you in the wrong direction. You should have gone left, but you went right. And you followed these kind of like traumas and trauma bonds and all that kind of stuff. All of that, I geeked out on one side, but then on the practical side, I really leapt into on a deep level. So I did shit tons of crying. I did heaps of emotional work, heaps of releasing. And then I got to this point of stripping down to bare bones because, in terms of possessions and money and all that kind of stuff, I had none. And so when you're starting from scratch, you can then say to yourself, well, I've got an opportunity to start from this point forward. And what version of Adrian do I want to project to the world? And so in this do-over opportunity, I've found that if I'm ever going to have the opportunity to have this version of me and live congruently to this version right now, then this is my moment. And so within relationships, within business, like anything that doesn't align with my values is an absolute no. There's some gray area, but just some.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And do you feel like this time has been your biggest growth time? Because I mean, for me, like, I know along the way, I've just had, it's been like a growth along the way, like a domino effect, if that makes sense, and like different learnings along the way. Do you think this one was just like freaking massive for you? Just
100%. Like it seemed to be like one after the other.
Yeah.
But like I can tell you, like as I mentioned before, in terms of being bullied at school. So that's one thing. I've had stuff that's gone on in childhood. I've had the same dysfunctional family as everyone else, fighting and all that kind of jazz. I've had the blessings of having 3 kids, 3 boys. But along the way, like we've lost a little girl in between my first and third born. So like I've had things happen. I've had people commit suicide, die from cancer, lost loved ones, all that kind of stuff, almost gone broke. Like I've had all of these things, but just in the last couple of years, it just seems to be like one hit after another. When you go to rough surf and you dive under a massive wave, you get up and there's another fucking wave. And then you're like, okay, I'm down for the next one. And then you get up and it's like another one. Then you start to think, oh, like, I don't think I've taken enough of a deeper breath for this last one. And so then you go under and you really got to hold your breath, So you finally come up for that, third one. And then you're like, man, it's still coming. And so now it's like, well, I have to get fit. I have to get match fit for all this kind of stuff. I need to start to build resilience, and I need to start to arm myself with tools and strategies and techniques that are going to help me. Because if this is the tone of the next couple of years, well, I got to become a fucking fighter. Yeah. Like that's how I look at it is, I've had to get battle ready And that's probably where a lot of people get caught out, because we've had a pretty cool life for the last 20 years or so. And or my lifetime anyways, it's been hard at times, but it's almost like that was like the hardest bit for that moment. But the last couple of years, it's been like smashed. Every 5 minutes, it seems like there's something new around the corner.
And do you feel like now that you've been smashed, like, do you feel like at this point where you're at now, you just feel stronger than ever and have more of a sense of self and who you are now going forward?
Much more of a sense of self. I don't feel like this is the end of it. I honestly feel, but in saying that, I feel like I'm running towards challenges versus running away from.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Totally. Yep.
Like, my strategy in the past was being avoidant. And so, like, I would avoid confrontation. I avoided that in business. I avoided it in relationships. I avoided it as a child. So like, all of that stuff just was repetitive pattern. This is where I kind of trace back, just the things that I do. It's like, oh, that's Adrian, doesn't like, confrontation. And I'm just like, I'd rather make love and not war. Right. But the real issue was that I just avoided facing fucking tough times. And so now I'm running towards issues. So I see problems in all areas. I go, okay, well, this is an issue. We need to face this because I want to get back to peace. And in order to do that, I have to overcome this obstacle. It's like, have you ever read the book, The Obstacle is the Way?
Yeah, I know the book. Yeah.
So it's just, that's my approach now. It's like, it doesn't get easier, but I want to face the issue and then tackle it. And in terms of coaching, I love that because I've always come from like lived experience, and that's how I coach. So I don't read textbooks and then go, Narita, you should be doing this because this is what I just read. It's like, in my life, this is the practical application of how I applied this resilience techniques. This is what was happening at that time, what I was going through, what was going through my mind, where I was feeling in the body, the emotions that I had and all that kind of stuff. What was a physical reaction to that particular moment. And then that's how I dealt with it. So this is like my life path. This is how I learn, and this is how I teach.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I feel like too, because you've recognized the fact that you did have this avoidant pattern, that it probably, you run to challenges now, you see the obstacles as the way, but probably you won't have as many experiences in that way because you've been slapped in the face so many times until you actually did it anyway. You know what I mean?
For sure. Oh, absolutely. Like, do you find that it's almost like the larger the test that you have, every subsequent test that comes along is almost like it doesn't hurt as much?
Yeah, totally. You've been there before and you're okay, I know what's going on here.
Yeah, that's it. So like right now as we speak, I mean, people need to know that what I'm doing in the podcasting space with my coaching and things like that is everything that I've just explained. But at the very same time, like, I've got people chasing me for coin. I've got solicitors' bills. Like, there's just so many things happening in the background that in the old versions of Adrian, it would have just sent me into like an anxiety spiral. Right. I would have been a fucking mess. I would have been eating like shit, not going to the gym, and really on a high anxiety level always. And so, although like I'm not devoid of those sorts of experiences, it's just that when I manage that process at the moment, I can be very caring about the situation, but I can also not worry as much. And I think the two need to be kind of isolated. It's like, you can worry about a lot of things, and you can also be careless, and you can also have no kind of empathy or no sympathy or no regard for anyone else. You can be very selfish in that moment. So the way I delineate that at the moment is I'm very caring about who I interact with, what's happening to me, my family, my kids, and those sorts of things. I care a lot, but I try not to worry as much or give much weight to just constantly worrying about things. And it happens. Like this week I've been really crook for a couple of days, got a fucking cold sore, like all of the stuff was coming out. But my go-to now is the supplements that I take. It's fasting. It's kind of like getting the minerals and the vitamins that I need to have in my body. It's resting. It's going back to the relaxation and to the meditations and the kind of affirmations and the things that I run through on a day-to-day basis, telling myself that I'm a healing machine.
Yeah.
And that I can get over this in a matter of days. I don't have to be bogged down by illness of any sort. So with that being said, like that's how I kind of view the world at the moment. It seems like I said to you before, getting match fit is a thing. Right. So like you really want to have your aerobic activity at a really high rate. You want to be able to endure intensity for a long period of time. Lasting longer is a, not just one thing that you need to know in the bedroom. It's like, it needs to be something that, stamina is important in all facets of life.
Absolutely. Because like you said, we're going to be faced with things at many different times, and we're all not on this smooth trajectory of like everything is roses and rainbows and all that sort of stuff. And I love how you talked about affirmation and doing that work. Even that's, continuing doing that work, continuing staying fit, continuing looking after yourself and being kind to yourself when you are in the shit. Like, the best thing that you can do is support yourself in that time, because you're your biggest cheerleader. And then, we know the power of our subconscious mind and how powerful what we say to ourselves and what we feel about ourselves and how we see the world, what a difference that makes to us. And so we're able to show up for ourselves more and more. And I think when you're, like you're saying right now, you've got lots of stuff happening in the background, to be able to stand there and go, you know what, I'm okay, I've got this. That's hugely powerful. You're not falling down or, but you can do that because you've gone through that.
Yeah.
You've gone through those tough times to be able to stand there to go, I know I'm going to be okay. And I choose not to worry about this. And I know it will all work out.
Yeah, 100%. It just goes to, like, I think we have become professionals at beating the shit out of ourselves. Right. Yeah. Like we're really good at picking faults, and we're really good at focusing on the negatives. And that's something that we've been conditioned to do and that we've been taught very well over a period of time. And so I think, like, for me, I've always been an optimist at heart, but sometimes optimistic people can bullshit themselves into a narrative that is just fitting for the moment, just to get yourself out of trouble. It's not actually a reality. So you need to really come to Jesus and say, hey, listen, this is the reality of how things are. Like, I am really shit at making poor choices. When I'm feeling nervous and anxiety, I make poor food choices, for example, those sorts of things. So or when I experience these heightened moments of stress and all that kind of stuff, this is how I react to those situations. This is where I feel it in the body. So I think that with that being said, it's kind of like these affirmations and how you kind of pep yourself up is a very important component to retraining the unconscious mind, how to think more positively, how to rationalize things. Like, you can almost use, your forebrain, your high brain to go, I can rationalize this with saying, how bad is it really? Like I had a guy say to me a few months ago, where I saw him at a cafe, and he used to come to my skate park, and he said, oh, you're still around. Like, as in, I hadn't killed myself because I just lost, $750,000. Right. So it got me thinking, and I found it funny that, like, some people might lose $1,000 or $10,000 and they're ready to check out of life. Whereas I was at $750,000. I'm still nowhere fucking close to killing myself. Right. I even had the thought doesn't even enter my mind. So I think that building that kind of adage of this is the reality of things. It's not as bad as what you think it actually is. But at the same time, you need to start taking action in order to make things better and to not face this situation again, or at least if it comes again, you're well prepared. Yeah. And that's all that we've really experienced in the last couple of years, Narita. Like, we've been ill prepared for situations like this. Right. And you can look at it as at a pandemic response. You can look at it as just like a local level, like in terms of floods and fires and bits and pieces like that. And you can look at it in terms of just our emotional quotient, like the ability to withstand stress and pressure. The threshold for hard times is like we're not match fit. And I keep going back to all of that. So yeah, positive affirmations, all that kind of stuff. It sounds woo-woo, it sounds, wishy-washy and, rah-rah, Tony Robbins and, I'm alive, I feel great. But, it works on a level, like we need to convince ourselves sometimes that we are very powerful and that, I get in trouble a lot for telling people that, we're always looking for someone to save us. And a lot of people turn to, to whatever, to God, to Jesus, to Allah, to whoever your higher power is. But, I talk to a higher power all the time and it's my voice that comes back. And I've been in positions where I've had to heal myself quickly from really detrimental things like happening inside my body. And I've done that. So who is that really? Like, who is the almighty and all powerful? And that would have to be us. Like I'm in control of all of that. I'm the one that's moving the needle on those sides. And people may disagree with that, and that's totally fine. But I feel like we have been deluded to think that we have to acquiesce any authority and power to somebody else when all of that power remains inside of us. And it has been and is untapped. And that is like, potential that we need to constantly tap into, which is why I find my work so far has been so meaningful and purposeful, because I'm allowing people to get an insight as to how fucking incredible they actually are. And then when they get a glimpse of it, they're like, wow, I didn't realize I had the answer the whole time. I'm 50 years old, I'm 45, I'm 29, whatever it is. Like I had all the power, the answers, everything that I needed was right here all the time. And in terms of creation and abundance, everything that I ever need or wanted or desired has already been created. It's already here. All the money, it's already running through everyone's purses and ashtrays and bank accounts and cryptos and all that kind of stuff. That's already there. It's already been created. There's nothing that I need to do. I just need to call it in. Like, pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The power really is within. Everything begins there. Everything starts there. That is where the magic happens, really. Well, now I want to ask you another question. So what has been your biggest highlight of your conversation so far? Gotta love the coconut water. The biggest, your favorite conversations on your podcast so far? I mean, they're all pretty phenomenal. So what's the biggest insights that you've got from that?
Look, I don't know if there's anything that comes to mind that's a biggest insight.
Yeah.
But in terms of a particular podcast or whatever, but there's a few things that do come to mind in terms of an insight that I learned from Tim Ferriss. And have you ever read The 4-Hour Workweek?
Yeah.
All right. So I read it like years ago, but I do listen to his podcast and I do re-listen and reread it every now and then. And the last time that I read it was right before I started to kick off the interviews with doctors and things like that. And one of the things that he said in his book was that he gave a task to his students to connect with an A-grade celebrity and ask them if they would come on an interview, or they could talk to them. And then he had strategies of getting through, their PA and all that kind of stuff, right? So one of the overarching messages was that they're human, you're human. And if you just don't ask and if you don't persist, then you're never going to know. And I guarantee if you ask 100 of them, one is going to say yes, maybe two, or maybe even three. And the moment that you get an A-grade celebrity on your list is the moment that you'll start to get recognized and you're kind of rubbing shoulders with the people that they rub shoulders with. Yeah. So from a business and marketing strategy, I've used that for a while, but then it kind of got confirmed by the book. So the takeaways that I got was that, for example, I sent an email to Robert Kennedy Jr. And said to him, like, hey, listen, I run this podcast. It's kind of just started, blah, blah, blah. This is who I've interviewed so far. And we've got this situation going on in Australia. And I think you should, it'd be really lovely to talk to you, all that kind of stuff. My email is kind of like, this is what I do and how I go about it, who I've got on the show so far. And it'd be lovely to have you on the show. Anyway, he fucking emails me back, right? Not his assistant, not anyone else, him.
Yeah.
So He goes, yes, I'm just finishing the Anthony Fauci book, and I'll be done in 2 weeks. I'll contact you then. We'll get it all sorted out. Now I'll pass you over to my assistant, and she'll help you put it all together. Right? So it's like, wow. I've got Robert Kennedy Jr. to come on the show. And I have this running joke with some people that say no to coming on the podcast. And I say, like, it's a hoops that I got to go through in order to track down these people.
Yeah.
But Robert Kennedy will email me back personally and get on the show. So there's those things. And the other thing is that what I found is when you open yourself up to approaching certain people like of this caliber, and then you have a situation where you just don't feel nervous or anxious, like in the coaching space, it's or any kind of sales, it's like asking for money, asking for the deal, right? And so then you go, oh, she's going to say no, it's going to be too expensive, and you're already coming with the objections that you're going to have. But then when you go, hey, I'm fucking worth it, and you're going to benefit heaps out of everything that I do and say, your energy changes, and then the results also change as a direct reflection of your energy. And so the more and more people that I asked, and the more and more people said yes, that it was doing two things. It was confirming that I was on the right path, that I wasn't a loser and an idiot and fucking psycho who just doesn't that the coronavirus is real. And then also it was like I have the ability to connect with people all around the world that have got an influence, and I can rub shoulders with these people, metaphorically on a virtual space, right? So that's the most impressive part about all of this. Like, I can email Peter McCullough and he'll email me back and say, yes, I'll be on the show. And he'll even convert the time from Texas to Australia and say, I can do it on this date, and book me in and send me the calendar invite. And I've asked him to be on the show. Right.
Brilliant.
And so there's things like that. And when I go to certain people to ask them to be on the podcast, the amount of people say yes is astonishing, and say yes straight away. I would love to be on your podcast. So yeah, like another thing, and again, this is sounding like a bit of a flex, but these are aha moments. Like I interviewed McCullough before Joe Rogan did. Right.
That is a cool flex.
I interviewed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. before Rogan did. So and this is the thing, like I love Rogan's podcast, and I like his approach to all the things, because I geek out on stuff, and then I interview people that I like, the subjects that I like: relationships, health, fitness, mindset, parenting, psychology, COVID, vaccines, all that kind of stuff. Like I do that. And he kind of has a similar approach to all of these things. But how cool is it to know that I have guests on my show that Joe Rogan has on his show, and I've interviewed people before him? So, like, I don't know, is that enough insights? Like, in terms
that's
of
cool. It's awesome. It's awesome. And I think the biggest thing that you said there is something that I have carried with me from a beautiful lady that I worked with in my very first job. She said, Narita, if you don't ask, you'll never know. And it was at a lunch, because I wanted to change what was on the plate. I wanted to add something or something. If you don't ask, and it was just so simple, but it's so true. If it's in your heart to do, then I love what you've said as well. The confirmation coming back and forth, it's two-pronged. You're building your confidence, knowing that you're on the right track, and people saying yes, and then being able to share all this freaking awesome with the world. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a spin out. Like I this is probably the first time I've really said it out loud on a podcast. I mean, I talk to certain people and I just go, fuck, can you believe it? Like, the amount of people that I'm reaching out to, and even the people that say no. So I'll give you a couple of people that have said no, but they respond back. And that's the beautiful thing. Like, they don't fob you off like you're an idiot and you're just a nobody. Like JP Spears has not come on the show, right? So like there's people like that. There's a few people that for example, like Kiyosaki, Robert Kiyosaki, all that kind of, like Tony Robbins, they've sort of come back and said now's not the right time, right? So that's okay to me. That's not a no. That's not a definite no. That's a maybe. And that's a reason for me to keep going, because there could come a time where this show could be one of the most popular shows in Australia. And when you get eyeballs on the things that you do, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. So like all of those things are really impressive. And then another one that just come to mind is like the fact that we're having this conversation. There could be anyone anywhere in the world that could tap into this at this point. And to me, I fucking love that. Yeah. Because I'm sure you get messages from people everywhere kind of going like, thank you, just thanks for the stuff that you're doing. Right. You said the same thing to me, like, just thanks for your podcast and thanks for, all the work you do. And I really value it. Like to me, that's a tremendous compliment to what you're doing to create change in the world. And not everyone may have the same aspirations, and that's totally fine. But I've always had this kind of aspiration. I remember having conversations like this with mates, gone by, saying like, what do you want to do with yourself? I'm like, I want to do something pretty big. I want to do something that's kind of remembered, that makes an impact, that's, it's a bit of a legacy. And that's what I used to say when I was like 17 or 18 and 19. This is why I've always thought that I've gravitated towards this entrepreneurial space or this business space, because I've wanted to buck the trend and do something different. And I've got to be honest, like most of the time, 80% of the time, it's been fucking hard. Like it's been a slog. In my real estate days where I owned a real estate practice, like it was, 8-9 years of slogging it out. And then when I finally got to the opportunity to sell the place and made some money, like that was the crescendo at the end for all the hard work. It wasn't just, easy street the whole time. And it was the same in coaching. I thought I was going to get into coaching and just make a fortune straight away. And I didn't. I fucking I think I made more money when I was 17 than I did in my first year of coaching. Like it wasn't the best, And so, all of those things are kind of, a path of the course in terms of the tools and the resilience and getting back to all of that kind of training that you need in order to create. So, but this space though, Narita, like I'm really comfortable with this. I can do this all fucking day. Yeah. All right. It's like I don't lose sleep. I don't get hungry. As long as I've got my coconut water next to me and all that kind of stuff, I'm hydrated. Like this, I'm good. I can talk all day. And when I do workshops and things like that, it's no notes. It's 8 hours of coaching. Like it's just, full on. And so this is my jam. Like I need to be in this space. It gives me juice. It gives me joy. It gives me like a lot of life and a lot of zest for being creative and all that kind of stuff. This is my thing. And so it's kind of like, I need to make this happen because I don't want to fucking get a job. I don't want to go and work for someone else. I don't take orders at the best of times, right? I'm the easiest guy to work with, right? And I'm opinionated, and I'll tell you if it's wrong because now I don't avoid any conflict, So I kind of bring things up when it's not suiting me. And so I just need to be in this space where I'm in control of everything that I do, and I'm the author of my own story.
Yeah. And I so resonate with that. I mean, and that just shows you're flowing and in alignment with what it is that you're supposed to be doing. What advice would you give to people who aren't feeling that flow right now? Because I know that is a big thing that can sometimes come up.
There's a few things. I mean, when you're not feeling the flow, there could be a number of things that are going on. So I think you got to check yourself in terms of like, why aren't I flowing in all of this in terms of liking the work or enjoying the process? So is it an attitude thing? Is it the fact that I am not giving myself credit where credit's due? Or are you on the wrong path? Like that's a hard decision, to come to the decision where this is not meant to be is a difficult one, because you don't know whether you're like the 3 feet from gold scenario.
Yeah.
The kind of acres of diamonds type of thing, where you
got the
give up
picture
just
in my mind.
before. Yeah, that's right. So you're like, you don't know. And I think you got to test things, and you got to pivot, and you got to try things new. So I'll give you a real life example of something that I've had to do personally. So I lost the business. I had to close it down earlier this year. So that took away a chunk of income. My coaching had already been suffering because of the lockdowns and things like that. I got roped into the business. I was working 80 hours a week there. And then it's all the emotional baggage and everything that come along with it. And so, it's been rough. So I got out of that and had to start like from scratch, building up my coaching profile again and all that kind of stuff. So what could I do? Well, I could do podcast interviews and get back into that. So I did. And I also could do some content creation in terms of directing people the best way they can contact me, offering information that could help them and serve them in some way. So I did that. But at the same time, like, as you know, the money doesn't come in the next day that you start that. Like it's a slow burn. It's a process that needs time to simmer, and people need to get to know you, like you, and trust you and all that kind of stuff. So I was doing some work with my brother. So like I said, I come from a family of self-employed people. My dad and my brother are both concreters. And so I was working with my brother doing laboring. So out there, we're shifting concrete and all that kind of stuff, building this massive retaining wall. And he says to me, look, if you wanted to get into something that you could just earn a bit of money on the side, you could resurface driveways. And I'm like, okay, well, I've done resurfacing concrete because I did 750 square meters in the skate park to resurface the entire floor. So he said, you could do it. This is the square meter rate. This is how you go about the job and all that kind of stuff, the tools you need. I'm like, no worries. My mum's a painter. My mum's been painting homes for 25 years. So I come home and I said, hey, mum, what do you think of this idea? I could get you to go and seal the driveway. I could get some marketing stuff organized, all the rest of it. She agreed. And so then I went back to a mate of mine. I said, hey, listen, I've got a job. This is the idea about what I want to do. And I need to create some marketing ideas. I went back to my brother. I got some marketing information, got some videos. I went on to AI, like this AI chat thing that I've got. Yeah. And I said, listen, I want to start this rejuvenation business, and it's resealing driveways, and I need to come up with a catchy name, and it needs to be sort of like resonance with the work that I do, but also not corny or anything like that. But, can you give me some ideas? Give me 10 names that I need to come up with. So it comes up with 10 names. One of those names is Revive My Drive, right? No worries. That sounds like a fucking great name. To the crazy domains, registered crazy domains like the revivemydrive.com.au. Went over to my mate Cam and I said, mate, can you help me with this business? The only way that I can pay you though is through lead generation because I'm fucking broke. So I was like, listen, if you can get me some leads through Facebook marketing and Google ads and things like that, then out of those sales, I can pay you. And so he created a website. I got my marketing material from my brother from the jobs that he'd done. And then I put together this marketing reel, created an Instagram, Facebook account, started off some ads, and I started getting leads within days. So, this is something that like a long-winded answer to your question, but I think there are many ways to make your dream happen whilst having like something else kind of carry the load whilst you're making the dream happen, right? Absolutely. And so the caveat is that sometimes you can have a plan B, but if you focus too much attention on plan B, it becomes plan A, right? All of your energy, like energy flows where focus goes, right? So it's one of those things where you need to be mindful that you need to be sort of like, rowing the boat over here and then rowing the boat over there. You need to kind of put a little bit of juice into each of the lanes and make sure that each one of them's kind of like going. So you're spinning plates for a little bit. But I think that if anyone's feeling discouraged, like there's just so many more ways of doing things. There's so many more ways of earning money. There's so many more ways of creating businesses. There's so many opportunities now where you can create an audience, a platform, send a message out like to many tens of thousands of people in one go. Like you and I can't go to network marketing functions and have conversations like this with 1,000 people, but we can do it on here because it can reach 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 1 million people. Like you could reach the world. So it's one of those things where I think maybe just thinking outside the square, maybe just becoming creative, maybe just asking yourself a question like, is there another way? Is there a person that is doing what I want to do? Can I model that person? Can I ask for help? Is there someone that could maybe lend me some advice on how to go about these things and create something that I really wanted to create? Because, when I'm speaking to you and we're having a conversation like this and we're spitballing ideas, but you come from a third party, you're not close to me enough to say, Adrian, you're the best. You just do whatever you like. No, I think it's a great idea and all that kind of stuff. You can give me an objective view because you're a third party, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So I think talking to the right people is a very critical thing, because you can go to someone and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? And like, yeah, it's a great idea. Go for it. Right. Whereas if you talk to someone with a bit of nous, they might go, well, have you thought of this?
Yeah.
And have you thought of that? Like, is there something that I'm missing here? Like, help me understand your business. Like, these are critical things. And so it just paints the way that there is so many more things that you could be doing, and just sometimes a little 1 degree pivot here and there can make all of the difference. And also, to what we were speaking about before, like in terms of abundance and opportunities, like there's no fucking shortage. Like everything that you ever needed, wanted, and desired has already been invented, created, and built and made. Like there is nothing you need to do, invent, create. Like the cameras, we're talking off air about what camera do you use and microphones and all that kind of stuff. And, all those sorts of things. We talk about podcasting studios and all that kind of jazz. Like it's already been done. Yeah, all the answers are there. It's like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, like when I went to primary school, we had a math book and all the answers are at the book. You turn the book upside down.
Yeah.
Go to the back and they're all the answers. Like all the answers are at the back of the book. So easy.
Yeah, all the answers are within. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love your point as well. It's, I think a lot of people feel like, oh, if I want to do this business or I want to do this idea or something along those lines, they sometimes feel like it has to be all in or nothing. Whereas I like what you're saying. It's like the abundance is everywhere. It's being able to row the boat on both, using both sides of the paddle, and being able to bring your dream to life. So you might do something that maybe it's not your ultimate goal, but it keeps you afloat while you're bringing your dream to life. I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah. I think like sometimes when I explain to my coaching clients about going off course, like the universe rewards action. And so you can zigzag, right?
Yeah.
And you can be sort of going off course and going off your true north. But as soon as you find the point of correction where you need to make the pivot, you're kind of there. Like you just go, pivot, here I am. I'm at the point. Whereas most people don't leave this point.
Yeah.
Right. So their goal is up here. They're right there. They convince themselves of every which way not to do anything. And then they wonder why they never achieve their goals, is because, well, you didn't fucking do anything. Like if you had made 25 mistakes and was here, you're like, well, now I've learned 25 ways of not getting to my goal. Which way do I need to go now in order to go towards it? And that ends up being the trajectory to get you to that goal. You're already halfway. And so to pivot to get to your goal is like, you're on track. And then you're like, wow, I am so much further than what I thought I was, but it's only because you took action. And it could be miserable action. It could be failing action. You could have fucked up so many times, and everyone could have said to you, I don't know why you're doing it. Like you're a glutton for punishment. But it's in the learning that you figure out what not to do. And again, like I said before, like there's already someone that's done it. Right? There's already someone that's done it. They know exactly what to do, and they've made all the mistakes. This is how I coach. I'm no better than you, Narita. I've just probably fucked up more. Okay.
I'm with you. I think the amount of times I've fallen on my face and the mistakes that I've made, that's shaped who I am, and that's brought me to where I am today. And so I celebrate the pain, celebrate those times, because really the obstacle is an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to grow, and all of those things, like if you choose to be in alignment with the frequency of your highest potential, things that then come up, that they're for your growth. And so even though you might divert off the path a bit, you're on the path, because that is going to teach you something that leads you to the next thing. And like to your point as well, if we don't take the action, then we're not able to do it. I mean, the word attraction, law of attraction, has the word action in it. We can't just think about it. Yes, we can think about it, but we have to do the work as well. So it's not, I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with the big picture of what we want to do, but then if we bring it back down and just take one step at a time, that is how we get to where we want to go. And it all happens in that moment anyway, because everything happens now. So we be that thing in that moment, and then we make it happen.
Now that
you so is there something on your heart, anything else on your heart that you really want to share today that's just like bubbling at the surface?
I think a lot of things have been bubbling to the surface in this conversation. No, look, I'm excited about the future, and I'm optimistic for the first time in a while. I think that there is no shortage of hard lessons left to go, and I really think that what everyone is, that I think would be in alignment with this podcast and the messages that we're talking to, is that this is the biggest growth and the biggest learning that you'll ever face in your life. And so, as cliche as it sounds, it's like it's never crowded along the extra mile, right? And so going through this sort of hard times and learning about yourself and discovering things about how you tick, like why you do the things that you do. And there's so much information out there that is totally free and is readily available. Like there's so many books and so many podcasts and so many like people that you can get in contact with to learn more about how you operate. And that to me has been like the biggest takeaway. So like this operating system, we never got the user's manual. And we've always been learning mostly from broken people who didn't also have the user's manual either. So we kind of need to take charge. This is our time now to rectify the past mistakes and learn from them to the degree that we can now carry ourselves forward into the future with the version of ourselves and the reflection of the world that we want to live in. It's clear that this sort of dynamic that we're in now, in terms of the dichotomy between the old world and the new world, it's not where we want to be. It's a transitioning part of the time and space that we're in. So it's a hard, like it's a bitter pill. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but this is one of those times in history that we read about.
Yeah.
These are the moments that we read about in history. Like, wow, can you imagine going through that time in history and how fucking difficult it could have been? This is one of those times. And so this is a learning and growth opportunity. And to see it as that is a difficult one, because you're like, yeah, but the world's so this and the world's so that, and people are so X and Y and Z. You're like, yeah, they are. But do you want to whinge about it, and do you want to acquiesce, and do you want to suffer, or do you want to be the change that you want to see? Do you want to be the catalyst that we need in the world? We need more voices like this. We need more powerful women. We need more fucking masculine men. Like we need our children to see examples of that, right? And so we don't need to be under this mummy daddy organizations of government and pharmaceuticals and all that kind of stuff, like telling us what to do, right? That's my fucking life. I'll decide what I do with myself. Okay. And so that kind of sovereignty comes with the determination and the desire to learn oneself, right? And to figure out that operating system. And once you've got it kind of figured out, it's just a slow change and just a couple of little dials to the left and a couple of dials to the right. And as you go through all of that, you get to really get in the groove of how things go. And you get to feel that this is a yes and this is a no. This is definitely a direction I need to go in. And this is not. This is a learning opportunity. This is a growth opportunity. This is something that I should relish in success. This is something that I need to learn, figure out, recoup, recover, and get myself back together, pick myself back by the bootstraps and keep going. So I think that's really a life lesson that I've learned. And so if there's anything that can come from the heart, it'll be that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well said. Well said. And that's, yeah, it's all comes back to knowing who you are and standing in your truth and your power, and nothing can really go wrong from there, can it?
I hope not. I think you're getting on the you're giving yourself the best opportunity to weather that storm.
Yeah.
Right. And we've just been caught with our pants down far too many times. So I think, for me, I've had enough of that. My pants are firmly strapped on and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm just picturing you with these Harry High pants now, like walking around like this.
That's it.
That's
Dad
awesome.
bod.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm just mindful of the time. Is there anything else on your heart that you want to share? Anything, any rabbit holes you feel like diving down? Anything at all before we tell everyone where to find you and all that sort of stuff?
No, I think we've covered everything. Like I really think the message of this convo has been that we need to discover ourselves. We need to figure out what's going on here first, and then project that into the world. And we need to understand that all the answers are already there, and there's nothing stopping us from being the successes that we want to. And as a matter of fact, the only person getting in our way is ourselves. And so I think with that said, like that's all that needs to be done.
Yeah, we are the solution, aren't we? We are the solution. And if we want to see change in the world, then it all starts within, and we can make that happen.
Totally agree.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And so where can people find you, Adrian?
Look, I'll send you a couple of links and things like that. I've got like a Linktree with all of my little bits and pieces that I've got going on. But most people, if you just get onto Facebook, Adrian D'Amico, get onto Instagram, Adrian_D'Amico, like you'll find me somewhere there on socials, YouTube and all the rest of it. And you'll get to know the kind of look and feel of what I do. But yeah, other than that, like I think that's the best way to get in contact with me. I've got heaps of stuff, ebooks and podcasts and downloads and all that kind of stuff that people can get into, heaps of free resources. But yeah, more than happy to connect with anyone that wants some help.
Beautiful. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Adrian, for being on the show. Thank you to you at home listening. We hope you've got so much out of this conversation. It's just been a perler, lots of wisdom in it. And so thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button. If you're listening to this wherever you listen to podcasts, feel free to give it a review. But yeah, aside from that, thanks again, Adrian. It's just been so awesome to connect with you. And yeah, just thanks again.
My pleasure. It's been an honor.